Cardinal, I'm Chris Wolf from Learning and Development, and I have a very special guest today. So, Spekit is a name that should be familiar to many of our viewers. It's our training and enablement tool that supports learning in the flow of work. So, recently we launched Spekit to our community managers back in October and have since been building on the content library and adding more team member roles to the mix. So, today I'm joined by Spekit's Vice President of Product, Jody Mesa. Welcome, Jody.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to chat today.
So Jody has over 20 years experience in the tech industry. Most recently, she's held positions like Senior Product Manager, Director of Product Growth, and Vice President of Product. So together, Spekit and Cardinal are committed to improving the onboarding and training experience for all team members. So Jody, I'm so excited to hear some of your insight on this year's REDTALK themes, and I want to start with innovation. So, you know, innovation is essential to any tech company. How do you foster innovation on your team?
Yeah, great question, and something that I don't have the 100% answer to. It's constantly evolving. The market's evolving. Remote work is evolving. But I can share a few of the insights that have been really pivotal in our ability to drive through and innovate constantly, because it's not a 1-year plan or a 10-year plan anymore. You're constantly reacting to changes in the market. So a couple of the things that I would say are really, really important in fostering an environment of innovation is to, one, make it everybody's job, right? So it's really important that everybody feels that it's just as important as the business as usual work that we do is to constantly be keeping an ear to the ground, constantly be in conversations with customers, listening to the market, just reading and being really curious. So I should say that's just a really important part of being able to foster that. I would say the other part of that is building a diverse team. And just my leadership style generally, but really focus on hiring people who are great facilitators, right? If you hire one strategist, people who are, they're also great at strategy, but people who can really look to finding other people and other voices and different life experiences and being able to get really curious and interested in how they want to solve the problem. And so making sure that there are people who can bring lots of different perspectives together, facilitated around what I would say is number 3, is obsessed with the problem, not the solution. There's always going to be different ways that we can solve things, but really focus on what is the problem we're solving and know that better than anybody else. So really focusing on that and continuing to make sure that you're focusing on that over the solution itself.
Yes, love the actionable advice. So thank you. And that it's everyone's responsibility to be innovative and to embrace change. You mentioned a little bit about how the workplace has evolved over the past few years. Mm-hmm. So considering how the workplace is becoming more increasingly remote, what do you think is the most important element of communication?
Yeah, communication has changed. And again, this is one of those things that's constantly evolving. It's one of the challenges that at Spekit we're trying to help solve, right? Is there's more, you're not just able to shoulder tap all the time. So that's one of the things that we hear from a lot of our customers is like, how do you go and get answers to the questions that you need when you're stuck? And it's not as easy as like, oh, I see someone in the break room and I can just ask questions. And so we're finding that async communication and being more agile. So there is this element of documentation and making sure that you can put things in writing. I love to tell my team that that's a great way just to get your thoughts clear and to be really clear about your narrative. So writing is really important, but the way that you write and document is very different than the world that we used to live in, right? It's much more agile. Someone asks a question, write it down, put it in a place where other people can reference it. So I would say that's something that we're seeing change as the environment, as we move into this remote environment and really figure out what that looks like. The other part to that is really just transparency. I would say, especially in product roles and engineering roles, we can only solve problems if we have the greatest amount of context around what we're solving, right? And so having transparency, even when it's really hard, and I would even add to that, what's much more important is authentic transparency, right? Sometimes things are hard. We are in an economic downturn, and I'm sure that everyone who's listening to this is probably feeling some of the pains of that, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to share and make a safe space where you can say, here's what we're going through. We're going to rally as a team. and making sure that that information is readily available from top to bottom and bottom up. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing, just generally, I think, as an industry and just where we are, in the macroeconomic state of the country. So those are a couple of things that I think are really, really important when it comes to communication. And I think the third thing is really just making it your job and making it intentional.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of communication. You can just assume that people know things, and it's better to over communicate. It's better to write that down. It's better to send that email, send that Slack message. Those are all really important ways of just making sure that you're constantly having these conversations and being able to, even if you think someone, don't assume, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say the fourth thing that I found that's really important is find the right channel for the right communication. And so that's something that I think a lot of companies struggle with, to be honest. I think we're still finding our groove and it's constantly evolving. So I think it's really important to make sure what should be sent in a Slack, what should be sent in an email. We found additional ways to communicate rather than meetings. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this as well can understand that, oh man, you just get this like block of Zoom meetings and it's, tons of just Zoom fatigue and, watching yourself for 8 hours a day, having conversations. There's just a lot of pain that goes into that. We've started using Loom. Which is just a short form version of, I can record a message of myself. People tend to love that more than reading a large documentation, or even if you have the document, recording that, and it gives that personal connection, as well as is an effective way to communicate where people, different types of learners can understand in different ways. So.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem isn't unique just to your organization. Yeah, it's prevalent at ours too. And the various channels, very important. And I would say like the timeliness as well, especially as we're all asynchronous. I can't be holding up the train,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And we struggle a lot with that as well. One of the wonderful things about Spekit is we are a very diverse group. Half of our engineering team is all in Pakistan. And we really have to be intentional about what do we do in our crossover time, because it is a challenging time zone to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're waiting 24 hours or 48 hours to get an answer, that could really slow the pace of business. And so we've spent a lot of time as a leadership team, a lot of time with our executive team and all of our managers and our engineers to figure out what is that best rhythm that we can use, so we actually can use the benefit of having a 24-hour cycle rather than feeling the lag. And so that's something we're constantly working on.
Ah, that is awesome. So for us, a lot of what we do rather is property management. So that means that we inherit communities and their team members oftentimes with like 3 weeks notice. So if you can imagine, it presents a few challenges.
Yeah.
So we found Spekit to be a solve just for that. Yeah. It's been such an operational improvement to get people up to speed right away. So I'm curious, over at your organization, what has been the biggest operational improvement over the past year? And if you could tell us a little bit about how did you implement that?
Yeah, great question. To be honest, and this isn't a plug, but I would say we call it Spekit on Spekit. And I truly believe, just as a product person and someone who's building solutions in the world, like using your own product to figure out how you can provide those solutions, but really operationalizing our own product, right? We're trying to really understand how you can be more agile in your documentation, right? If someone asks a question, we've got this integration with Slack, right? So that's where we're getting most of the questions, where a lot of our clients are getting a lot of their questions. And so how can we make sure that we're in this new world of agile documentation? And if someone asks a question, write it down. How do you share that information? How do you ping that to the widest group of people so people are aware that information exists? So that's one of the things that has been really helpful just in our general operations as a company.
Yeah, agile documentation. That's such a great term, but so relevant and true. Yeah, I'll have to borrow that one from you. So in one of your previous answers, you talked a little bit about diversity on your team.
Yeah.
Right? So we know conversations around diversity can sometimes be challenging.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, especially you over in the tech world, how do you foster, or how does your team encourage diversity and belonging at work?
Yeah, so belonging is one of our values.
Okay.
We are a tech company founded by 2 women, one from Pakistan, one from the Bahamas via Switzerland. And so we have a very diverse group. This is the first product team that I've ever been on that is majority women. I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion. I've started most of our ERG groups around, and making that a safe space for women and people with diverse backgrounds to come together. And I think really, again, it comes down to intentionality. It comes down to you put your foot out there, you say, and I think Melanie's done a phenomenal job as the leader and CEO to say, we value diversity and we believe that that is at the heart of our product, that's the heart of our innovations, the heart of our clients. And so really just honestly just saying as a leadership company so that the whole company can hold you accountable, and then allowing space and time for people to be able to bring up concerns, to learn about each other's backgrounds. Again, we have a forcing function because half of our team is all over the world. Mm-hmm. I would say, even more than that if you look at all of the functions within the business. And so learning about, their needs, their challenges, their time schedules and how that's all different is really just a part of the fabric. And so I would say that even just the leadership team saying that, like, it is a value of ours that we foster bringing in diverse, just diverse perspectives. And that can mean lots of different things. And then finding the time and intention and accountability to make sure that we're hiring that way. We're making sure every conversation has that. We're teaching people how to be champions, right? And so there's a lot of that that we're focused on from just in the leadership and our personal conversations and all of the brainstorming that we do to make sure that we can get the widest lens of perspectives. Mm-hmm. And that's really been at the heart of our product and the company that we've built.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add, we have a mantra over here of this best idea wins, but you have to have a safe space where people feel comfortable to talk and bring their best ideas. And what I love about Spekit is that we can leverage these experts as editors so very simply, right? You don't have to have a background in instructional design. I can teach you the basics, and we can have so much knowledge, or like a diverse foundation of knowledge being shared across the organization, across a variety of functional expertise in a few simple clicks, and it's so easy, and I love it.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks, Cardinal. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.